Warning, I say a lot of bad words. If you're under 13, you probably shouldn't be watching this.
I've been experimenting with a new potion. I'd like to try it out, but the Earth Shapers have made going out a bit difficult. Could you kindly offer me an escort?
Maybe if you got rid of that old yee-yee ass haircut you got, you get some bitches on your dick.
Good news, everyone! We're now in 2021, and that means everything is back to normal. All disease and poverty in the world has vanished because we're in 2021, baby! Wait, everything still sucks? Aww. With the revival that Crash Bandicoot went through a few years ago, pretty much everyone after that was expecting Spyro the Dragon to get the same treatment, given the weirdly symbiotic relationship both series have together. Seriously, it's kinda scary how similar both series are. With Crash 4 now being a thing, I feel like it's only a matter of time before we also get a proper Spyro 4 that's not my sleep paralysis demon. But for now, we've just got the Reignited Trilogy, remakes of Insomniac's original trilogy from Toys for Bob, the same team behind Skylanders before and the fantastic Crash Bandicoot 4 after this. I gotta give them credit for remaking all these games from the ground up at a price of only $40, instead of just emulating the original games and charging full price for it, but nobody would ever stoop that low. Longtime viewers of mine might remember that a few years ago, I did actually cover all three of these games, but my opinions have changed a bit during my recent playthroughs of the Reignited Trilogy, and I did want to make a video more in line with what I do now versus what I did, like, 2,000 years ago. Anyways, let's see how these games all hold up to my more refined critical thinking adult skills. We begin Spyro 1 with a televised interview, which is an interesting way to start off your fantasy platformer about dragons and ugly people, to say the least. Some old guy is just talking about how great life is. No conflict, no economic hardships, everything's going great. Alright, now to check my hat for what uncreative, cynical jokes I can make about the current state of the world. But then some dude starts talking shit about Nasty Nork, and he takes it pretty well.
He is ugly.
Yeah, you kinda had that coming, dude. And thus, Spyro sets out on a quest to free the dragons and defeat Nasty Nork. That is the extent of any kind of plot or storytelling in this game. It's so basic that it's pretty much impossible to critique, which is unintentionally kind of a genius move on the developer's part. I mean, you can't critique what isn't there. Spyro the Dragon at its core is a very simple game.
Simple?
You visit different worlds, free dragons, slaughter the innocents, and collect a bunch of shiny rocks laying on the ground. And that's about it. Not much really changes about this game. For most levels, there's not really a concrete objective other than collect shit and then piss off. Now that's not a bad thing by any means, and the game in fact actually has that work in its favor. Spyro 1 is a pretty non-linear game compared to quite a few other 3D platformers and even its own sequels. While you obviously need to visit levels because taking the lazy way out never gets you anything, unless you make YouTube videos, pretty much every level is entirely optional to visit, and all you really need to do is free a specific number of dragons or collect a bunch of treasure to reach the next set of levels. Everything's unlocked from the beginning, and you can choose to ignore entire levels and even skip the bosses. I mean, it's not that big a deal given that these guys really suck, and one of the bosses is literally a sheep walking on stilts, as funny as that is. But still, it's really cool that you can choose to bypass entire chunks of the game as long as you filled out the world's checklist. Though, I still did everything, because I have no self-control and I should probably visit a psychiatrist. Whenever you free a dragon, they tend to give you a bit of advice, which is helpful in theory, but 99% of it is stuff that you could easily figure out on your own if you haven't already. Not to mention, the Reignited Trilogy pretty much makes one dragon's hint entirely moot because of the dead giveaway they put into the Artisan's Rock puzzle.
Listen carefully, Spyro. There's a secret area in the Artisan's home world near the waterfall. Try jumping on the stones there.
Dude, I figured that shit out like 7 hours ago. By the way, be prepared to repeatedly hear a specific 5-word phrase throughout your journey.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thanks for freeing me, Spyro.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thank you for releasing me.
Thanks for releasing me, Spyro.
Thank you for releasing me.
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 Thank you for rescuing me.
I have never been more annoyed by politeness. The game also has you collect dragon eggs. Well, kinda. There are 12 egg thieves in the game that are sparsely used in the first couple worlds, but then the game blows its load with them in the third world and then does away with them entirely. God, what was even the point? There's about 6 dragon realms, and all 3 levels in each realm offer a unique take on every theme, which does help shake up any potential repetition. That said, this game does have moments where its basic and simplistic structure starts to get tiring for me. It never gets to a point where I outright stop enjoying the game, but it is a bit grating after a while. Though what's always allowed me to push through was how good the presentation is, especially now in the remake. The art direction for this game and the entire Reignited Trilogy in general is absolutely stunning. The lighting, the colors, the animation, the textures, it's fucking masterful. Technology has definitely come a long way from the late 90s to now, and it really shows with the trilogy's art direction. Just like Crash 4, it strikes a perfect balance between stylization and looking faithful to the original works. What I love in particular is how much work went into animating the dragons you free. There's over 70 of these guys, yet they all have distinct designs and animations. It's kind of insane. Trilogy. That was bad, I'm sorry. One of Spyro's most distinct assets has always been its soundtrack. Stuart Copeland's compositions for the original games always gave the series a unique vibe that you couldn't really get from anyone else. I remember a few years ago watching the movie Good Burger and only being able to hear Spyro from the music in the film. I am tripping the hell out. Came back to help remaster the soundtrack as well, and while I do overall prefer the harder sound of the original compositions, the remastered music is still quite good, and what Toys for Bob did with dynamic music is really damn cool. Plus, you can switch back and forth between both soundtracks, which is nice. That said, I am a bit weirded out by a few choices made in the remake. Spyro 1's charging has always felt slippery compared to 2 and 3, and it confuses me why they replicated that feeling for 1, but also made the charging in 2 and 3 control better. Also, bringing the hover ability over would have been nice. I know it wasn't in the original, but there's a number of times where it would have been a more than welcome addition. A bit of an odd issue is that the gems sometimes get lost in the grass. This was never an issue in the original because the ground was just a flat surface with a texture, but in Reignited there's a lot more foliage, and at times it makes the gems harder to find than they really should be. It's not a major problem, especially because Spark's gem finder ability is a thing in all 3 games now, and it's really helpful in many instances, but still. The Superfly ability feels way too loose, and it makes the Speedway levels in particular harder than they were originally. I'm already not the biggest fan of these levels even in the original games, and while this problem isn't game-breaking, it definitely feels off. I swear to God, you need to be basically perfect in order to win Night Flight. I fucking hate that level. Spyro 1 isn't particularly difficult or cryptic, except for one very glaring example within the level Treetops. This fucking level is so cryptic with what you need to do and what path to take for the supercharged jumps that even after multiple playthroughs of this game, I still have to refresh my memory on what you even do here. It's so baffling. Why is this level like this? None of the others are. The original Spyro is a pretty good game, but I feel like there's a fair few things that hold it back from being a truly great game. It's always been my least favorite of the trilogy, and yeah, that's still pretty much the case here. On the plus side, there's nowhere else to go but up, right?
Trouble with the trolley, eh?
God is mocking me. Spyro 2 begins with a bunch of rain and our main character complaining about the weather and how much life sucks.
Is this rain ever gonna stop? I've forgotten what the sun looks like.
Bro, that's nothing. You should see what it's like here in Kentucky. Spyro wants to go to the beach, but inadvertently gets kidnapped by a bunch of strangers. Spyro 2 is set in a new world called Avalar, and we're introduced to a bunch of new side characters here. We got Hunter the Cheetah, who's your bro, Elora the Fawn, who is furry waifu, and the Professor, who's just there. The main bad guy this time around is Ripto, who's taken over Avalar, and you have to defeat him. Spyro 2 has the subtitle Ripto's Rage, and I gotta say, that's a pretty accurate name. Good job, guys.
Yeah! Crush! Kill it! Kill it! Go, you imbecile! Get off me, you useless buffoons! Crush! Go through the portal, you idiot! Go! Get me out of here!
This guy has worse anger issues than people who complain about Star Wars movies online. Unlike the first game where the plot basically amounted to literally a cutscene, Ripto's Rage has a little bit more to it. A little bit. Not much. It's a pretty simple platformer story that's given a lot more charm from the way the characters are played and interact with each other. A few of the voice actors from the older games actually came back to reprise their roles, specifically Tom Kenny as the Purple Boy himself among his other roles, and Greg Berger as Ripto. Also this time, there's Cassandra Lee Morris as Elora and Robbie Damon as Hunter. Persona 5 is going to infect everything else I love for the rest of time, isn't it? I ain't complaining. I waited until now to bring this up because Ripto's Rage has more character interactions than the first game did, so it didn't really matter too much in that case. But yeah, I'd say the performances all around are pretty good. The original trilogy was from 2 decades ago, so the vocal performances were never great, and I'd say for certain that Reignited's acting is leagues better from the newer members and the people re-recording their past lines. I especially like Hunter's delivery this time around with how much of a goofy himbo he comes off as. It's surprisingly endearing. Much like Crash 4, Toys for Bob gave all the characters new designs with the use of technology that wasn't available back then, and they all look really cool. The art team there very clearly knows what they're doing. I gotta give special mention to Alora's design because, oh my god, it's so adorable. Between her design and Tana's in Crash 4, I'm pretty certain that somebody at Toys for Bob is trying to turn me into a furry. It's not working. It's not working, guys. Stop it. That said, a few of the human characters kinda have a bit of a pre-bought Unity asset look to them that I don't think fits all that well here. It's a bit horrifying. Spyro 2 is both similar and different to the original game because, yeah, you're still going to fantasy worlds, collecting stuff, and slaughtering the innocents, but its approach is vastly different this time around. While in the first game you could pick and choose what levels you wanted to go to, in the sequel you're contractually obligated to visit every level at least once to finish a main objective, at least for the first couple of homeworlds. You have to collect talismans by reaching the end of a stage and orbs by doing the side challenges. I feel like depending on who you are, this might be kinda disappointing, but I didn't really mind it too much. Though it is kinda dickish that your friends have all these collectibles on them that could help you out a lot, but they force you to do manual labor before you get them. This is why I have trust issues. The stages in the original game were all in some way based around the overworld motif, though in Ripto's Rage they kinda just do whatever the hell they want regardless of that. Each level involves the NPCs' lives being made into a living hell, and you conveniently show up to help everyone sort their shit out. They all have opening and closing cinematics, which I always thought was really nice. The world of Avalar is probably my favorite setting of the Spyro universe, and over time I've noticed how every 2 levels have some sort of subtle relationship or connection together. Whether it involves different takes on similar concepts, such as the case with levels like Aquaria Towers and Sunny Beach, similar NPCs such as the ones in Crystal Glacier and Skelos Badlands, or even cases like Breeze Harbor and Zephyr where both sides are literally at war with each other. Spyro 2's levels exist in kind of a pair-like setup, and regardless of how much of this was intentional on the dev team's part, it's really cool.
You must be the dragon everyone's talking about. Well, dragon or not, I'm afraid there is a small fee to open the bridge.
Oh, right. Him. This is Moneybags, the most infamous character for literally any Spyro fan. The reason why is that he always gets in your way and demands payment before you can move on with your life. It's like the IRS. This little bitch charges payment for literally anything he can. Pathways through levels, entire levels altogether, and unlockable abilities that you somehow can't learn anywhere else. To be honest, I mostly just hate on this guy as a meme, and I do think he's entertaining in his own sleazy way. Plus, I do like his inclusion as a game mechanic because it gives the gems a bit more of a purpose and functionality than just shiny rocks that you pick up. You do eventually get all of them back at the end of the game, so it's not like him draining your life savings has long-term effects. Moneybags' character model was intentionally made to be super hateable and douchey, and that's honestly perfect for him. I do have to question what's even the point of the talismans though. The game only has them in the first 2 sets of levels before dropping them harder than Activision dropped the series for a full decade. After that, you just collect orbs. The game still prioritizes that you get enough orbs at certain points before the final world, so it's not a total bait and switch, but it's still a really weird design decision. Why are the talismans even a thing? Just have the orbs be the only main collectible at this point. To be fair, at least nobody says, "Thank you for releasing me" anymore.
Thank you for releasing me.
I take back every nice thing I said about this game, it actually sucks. Before the final overworld, your main source of orbs is through mini-games and side objectives. They do a really fine job shaking up the gameplay of Spyro 2 and keeping it from getting monotonous like how the original game could be, but at the same time, a select few of these mini-games really suck. Not all of them, in fact I'd say the overall majority of them are fine, it's just there are a fair few notable duds here. There's a reason that Trouble with the Trolley A is a meme among fans. You will hear that quite a bit doing this particular challenge in Breeze Harbor. That Crystal Popcorn mission in Magma Cone is also way too hectic for me to enjoy, and the less said about escorting the alchemist, the better. Though oddly enough, I got it on my first try in a recent playthrough. I don't know if Reignited made that mission easier or what, but yeah. While I do have my issues with Ripto's Rage, I mostly just brushed them off as petty grievances because otherwise the game is a definite step up from the first game in just about every aspect. Level design and themes are more imaginative, it just feels nicer to play, and even the bosses feel like actual bosses instead of waste of coding and assets. The camera does kinda suck for them though. They actually gave Ripto scenes where he interacts with the main cast like the grumpy short lizard he is, and it helps make him a really entertaining antagonist. Unlike Nasty Nork, who literally got a cutscene and then died. Yet somehow he, instead of Ripto, got into Nitro Fueled as a guest character. While I feel the original Spyro falls just short of being great, Spyro 2 was one of my favorite games ever made, and if it wasn't for how weirdly the collectibles are handled, and how tedious and annoying the minigames can get, Ripto's Rage would probably be my favorite of the series. Oh, and speaking of which... Have fun, DeviantArt! We open with everybody asleep and a bunch of dragon eggs all laying out in the open. I don't know who laid these eggs because they never show any female adult dragons, even though many of the hatchlings end up being girls, unless the dragons are an entirely non-binary or agender species. Spyro says trans rights, but this is all interrupted by a hooded rabbit girl named Bianca popping out of the ground and taking every last egg. She accidentally gives herself away, resulting in an attempt to stop her, which goes about as well as you'd expect. Here, we're introduced to the main antagonist of the third game, the Sorceress. And I don't know what any of the dragons were talking about with Nasty Nork. This bitch is the ugly one here. Seriously, who did her makeup? They deserve to be executed. So Spyro and Hunter set out on a quest to recover all the dragon eggs. Spyro 3 seems to be a bit of a weird one for a lot of people. I think everyone can agree it's a good game, but exactly how good it is in relation to the first two largely kinda depends on who you ask. Some will call it the best of the three, the weakest of the three, or somewhere in between. For a while I considered it my favorite game in the series, but after my most recent playthrough, that has not changed in the slightest. Sorry to disappoint anyone who was expecting to hear different, but I don't care. Granted, I do prefer some things about 2 over 3. For example, I think Avalar is a more interesting setting than the Forgotten Worlds, and 3's villain is pretty weak compared to Ripto, but at the end of the day, I just have more fun with 3. I've played and completed everything in this game probably more than any other game I've played, and I'll most definitely continue loving it for years to come. But I do have my issues with it now that I'm older and more refined and experienced in the deep and complex art of game criticism. I'm gonna start off with all the good stuff first because I'm my own boss and I don't pay my employees. It's hard to pick out all that much new to talk about with Year of the Dragon because with the exception of the new playable characters, it is largely more of what Ripto's Rage brought to the table. It's nowhere near as big a step up from Spyro 2 as Spyro 2 was from Spyro 1, but that's fine. It's mostly just minor tweaks and alterations made to the overall game design of Ripto's Rage. New platforming stages, new challenges to do, and new shit to pick up all over the place. This time you're collecting dragon eggs. I imagine by now they've realized how dumb it is to have an ultimately pointless second collectible, so this time it's just eggs. You get them from reaching the end of the stage and doing the side quest like in Spyro 2, and just lying around like in the first game. Just like before, you have to beat every level in the overworld, fight a boss, and then proceed to the next one. At least concerning the basic Spyro gameplay, while I do think 2 is at least a bit more interesting in terms of world and level theming, I'd say for the most part I enjoyed the raw level design and especially the side quests a whole lot more in Year of the Dragon. At least when playing as Spyro, I can't recall being as annoyed by any part of the game as I was with the frickin' Alchemist, that's for sure. My personal favorite of these challenges were always the parts when they made a better Pro Skater game than, well, the later Pro Skater games. That said, this might just be me, but the physics feel a bit weird compared to the original game. I mean, it's still perfectly enjoyable, and they weren't done nearly as dirty as the jet ski controls from Crash 3, but it could have used a bit of tweaking.
I'm getting paid a fortune to keep Sheila the kangaroo locked up.
Oh. Well, can't ignore this part anymore. Like I said, nowadays, Year of the Dragon is a bit of a weird game for people, and that's largely because of its biggest selling point, the 5 new playable characters. Sheila the Kangaroo, Sergeant Bird, Bentley the Yeti, Agent 9, and Sparks the Dragonfly. Some people think they're fine and spice up the gameplay a bit, while others say they make things a bit messier than before. I'm personally kind of in the middle on that. On the one hand, I actually do enjoy playing as these characters. Well, mostly. Especially given how much they've been improved on in the remake compared to the original game. They turned Agent 9's gameplay into Ratchet & Clank, so I can't complain about that. Also, they're fun, charming additions to the main Spyro roster who benefited from the remake treatment as much as everyone else did. I especially like Sheila's redesign. I know, some people for some reason don't care for it, but I think the hair and safari jacket are fitting additions for her character and personality. Also, Tom Kenny has a conversation with himself.
These are the latest military hardware. Do the X9 rocket launchers state-of-the-art.
So why didn't you use them to escape?
Because I have limited ammo, and I wanted to conserve it for this.
That said, I feel like for what's supposed to be the main new addition to Spyro 3, they're not quite as well utilized as they could have been. I appreciate that they're not super intrusive throughout the game, but I don't think that the game utilizes them as well as it should in either story or gameplay because they're pretty often sidelined and a number of their side challenges are underdeveloped compared to the one main level they each get. Now, they have their moments, like the tower climbing and fortress bits with Sheila, the FPS segment with Agent 9, and flying around enchanted towers with Sergeant Bird, but there's some lame shit for sure. The Firefly escort shit in Spooky Swamp is quite frankly just about as bad as the Alchemist in Spyro 2, and literally everyone agrees that the boxing minigame with Bentley is the single worst thing ever created by humanity. Honestly, I kinda hate playing as him in general, all because of that fucking camera. Why is it not properly centered on him? This bothers me so much. Also, you play as Sparks in these top-down twin-stick shooter stages, and they're okay, I guess. They're not unbearably bad or anything, they're fine, it's just that the controls are really weird. You don't have separate controls for moving and aiming, and you can only shoot what's directly in front of you, which is kind of awkward. That definitely could have been tweaked and modernized. I'm at least happy these characters exist, because they beat up Moneybags. He is even more obnoxious in this game than he was in Ripto's Rage, and I'm pretty sure even the game is self-aware, given how annoyed the yes-no options get over time, and the fact that everyone makes him his bitch. He's just everyone's punching bag and gets beaten up at every possible turn. The part where you chase and attack him while getting all of your gems back is very therapeutic, even if he does kinda glitch out after that. Yeah, that's a bit of a weird thing about this version of Spyro 3. More than 1 and 2, 3 Reignited has a notably larger amount of bugs and jankiness even 2 years later. I remember that one mission in Enchanted Towers with the wolf just randomly soft-locked on me, and in order to fix it I had to jump off a cliff and lose a life. I mean, the other games had their janky bits too, but I feel like 3 was a lot more notable in that regard. On the plus side, Year of the Dragon has cute bunny girl Bianca, so this game is automatically a flawless 10 out of 10. Well, except for the boxing minigame. Nothing will ever fix that. But yeah, those are my current opinions on the Spyro the Dragon trilogy. Given the wide availability of this collection on every modern platform, I think it's safe to say that this collection is both the cheapest and easiest way to experience the trilogy. And I'd say for the most part the definitive way to play these games with the updated presentation and improved controls. Even problems this game used to have like obnoxious motion blur and the absurd amount of space it takes up have been fixed in later patches. That being said, I do wish there was a legal way to experience the games in their original forms on more modern platforms, along with the remakes. Same with Crash Bandicoot, to be honest. As lovely as the remakes are, it would be nice to have an easier method of playing the games I grew up with in the actual forms that I grew up playing. While I kinda go back and forth on whether I think the original PS1 Crash games or the Insane Trilogy is better, for Spyro, it's no contest, I easily prefer Reignited. I do hope that this, along with the Spyro guest characters in Nitro Fueled, further paves the way for more original content from Spyro like what happened with Crash. Maybe we could see another attempt at Enter the Dragonfly's concepts. Maybe? Please? That'd be cool. I'll thank you for releasing it.